For many years, leftist billionaire George Soros has used his wealth to remake our society, American society. His latest area of focus is criminal justice. From Texas to Philadelphia to the state of Virginia, Soros has reportedly spent millions of dollars backing candidates for district attorney, for prosecutor. Once elected, these candidates have ended cash bail, treated felonies like misdemeanors, and sometimes ignored some crimes entirely.
Policies are following a new precedent set by district attorneys in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Chicago, and Philadelphia. All of them cities where many crimes are on the rise. But in all of those cities, the DAs got into office with the help of billionaire George Soros and his big fat bankroll.
Just this past election cycle, he donated approximately $2 million to Kim Foxx's re-election campaign in Chicago. He gave almost $1.7 million to Larry Krasner in Philadelphia to help him get elected.
Soros is financially backing 4 district attorney positions in California. He and other wealthy Democrat donors are throwing their support to the tune of millions of dollars behind these potential prosecutors.
It's really a larger movement. It's one that's looking to expand across the country, not only in urban areas, but in rural areas as well.
So when you're dumping that kind of money into local races, it's very difficult to compete, especially when the voter turnout in those races tends to be very low. This is a deeply held ideology that you've seen implemented in cities across the country. You showed all the DAs on the screen, and it really comes down to what the DA-elect in New York just said in that interview, I believe with Eric Shawn, when he said, well, it just depends on what your definition of a criminal is. And as you see with the policies, they do not believe in putting people in prison because they think that the system is systemically racist and irredeemable, and therefore they want everybody to be released out of it, regardless if you're a murderer or not.
And I think the scariest part of this, too, Katie, is when you deal with the new vision that Alvin Bragg has, that armed robbery, as long as nobody was really ever threatened or hurt, will be charged as a misdemeanor, petty larceny. That will cause the police to not show up when somebody calls to say somebody's holding us up with a gun.
In Philly, homicides have more than doubled since Larry Krasner was elected DA in 2017. The city of brotherly love is now the city of duck and run.
Krasner's main priority, though, is to get even softer on crime.
Philadelphia is the laboratory where this experiment in Soros-funded prosecutors is playing out. And now the returns are in. Homicides have skyrocketed. Shootings have skyrocketed. The worst kinds of violent crime have really gone up. And in addition to that, some of the low-level and the mid-level crimes have also gone up, but they aren't being reported. And the reason they're not being reported is because the DA has said he's not going to prosecute them. So you have statistically a bad situation that has developed in Philadelphia, but actually the reality on the ground is even worse than the statistics.
Rachel Rollins, the Boston DA, released 15 crimes you can now commit in Boston and not be prosecuted. According to Rachel Rollins' own list, a violent felon could break into your house, be in possession of cocaine, intend to sell that cocaine, and then resist arrest when the police arrive and not be prosecuted for any of those crimes.
Chesa Boudin became the city's new district attorney. Boudin is a Yale-educated public defender who has never prosecuted a case.
His vision is simple: lock up fewer people. It's the same progressive platform that swept a wave of other rookie DAs into office across the country.
As a candidate, Boudin promised that he would undermine existing laws by not enforcing them.
Once he was elected, the first thing he did is he fired 7 of our city's most experienced prosecutors, and all the red flags went up immediately.
Boudin's loudest critics are city police.
Do you believe Boudin is really trying to work more for the defendant versus the taxpayers?
I would say yes. And like I said, anytime you hire or you elect a public defender to become the district attorney or the prosecutor, you're going to get a public defender in the prosecutor's office. He's advocating for the people that are perpetuating violence upon the victims.
My parents drove a getaway car in a tragic armed robbery that left 3 men dead. My mother ended up serving 22 years in prison. My father's still incarcerated today and will likely never get out.
Chesa Boudin may be the least likely of prosecutors. He's the son of two activists from the radical left militant group Weather Underground. In the 1970s, the FBI classified it as a terrorist organization.
He grew up visiting his parents in prison. He made it seem like the system was unjust, but his parents were in prison for murder. That's why they were in prison. And so he has this idea that they just shouldn't have any incarceration, even for the most violent of crimes, which people are convicted of or plead guilty to.
Chesa Boudin said he wouldn't seek maximum sentences as district attorney, even for murder.
SFDA, do your job!
Protesters gathered in San Francisco's Chinatown, hoping District Attorney Chesa Boudin himself would show up to talk with a local shopkeeper who was pepper sprayed on Saturday. Family Chen says a young man shoplifted, then after being forced to return the merchandise, returned and pepper sprayed her in the face. Those protesters saying they believe the DA's policies have contributed to recent attacks on the AAPI community.
I think that the most important one is his catch and release policies. It is soft on crime. It allows the criminals to come out and commit more and more crimes.
His allies in the press call it criminal justice reform.
In Chicago, murder rates are through the roof. They're letting people out of prison.
Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx says one of her biggest accomplishments is how many convicts she helps set free.
During Kim Foxx's first 3 years as the county's top prosecutor, her office dropped all charges against 30% of felony defendants, a massive increase over her predecessor. And despite having video evidence and witnesses to crimes connected to death, she declines charging anyone. Of course, she also fell for Jussie Smollett, who's on trial for a hoax that was as believable as a Tom Cruise marriage.
One of the numbers that's just absolutely outrageous is we have about 117,000 gang members in the city of Chicago. Right now, in the last 8 years, we have almost 23,000 people shot. Kim Foxx, she celebrates the catch and release system. I've said this too. Our criminals are making a fashion statement out of being on an ankle monitor. And they know here, and this is the line that they use here, if you do the crime in Chicago, you're not going to do the time. It's a revolving door. She does not prosecute anybody. She puts everybody back on the streets, and it is actually destroying our city.
Now you know that the Waukesha madman had been released on a small bail despite having a history that would make Ivan the Terrible blush.
Many are wondering how he was on the street given his lengthy rap sheet. He's a career criminal. This is, we learn he was out on a $1,000 cash bond just before the parade.
John Chisholm, the DA who set him free, had pledged to work with the San Francisco DA, Chesa Boudin. San Francisco. Have you seen that hellhole since Boudin's been in office? Now the San Francisco treat means stepping on a used syringe while a tramp defecates on your shoes. Then there's LA's George Gascon, another far-left reformer bankrolled by Soros' millions. He's now, like Boudin, facing a recall after replacing the rule of law with weak sentencing for violent thugs. Gascon redefined victimhood, so victims aren't just those targeted by criminals, but the criminals themselves. So wherever crime's exploding, you find these dots, progressive Soros-backed prosecutors.
We will be the largest office in the nation to eliminate cash bail.
Controversial District Attorney George Gascon getting some support from a convicted killer. Take a look at this prisoner bragging about how the new rules could set him free.
It's Monday night right here in a new Folsom C facility, right here with my celly. Some white lightning, a little cup, boom. Salute. Celebrating us going home on this Gascon direct. Whoa.
A California prisoner with a long criminal history is trying to game the system under LA District Attorney George Gascon, trying to get his sentence reduced. In a voicemail left by the prisoner Daniel Avila, he threatens to attack a police officer during a prison transfer in order to get back into court to request that his previous sentence enhancements be revoked.
You know, when I get off the bus, I'm going to beat the out of a peace officer once I get off the bus.
Avila is locked up on a slew of felony charges that date back to 2005 when he was arrested in Ventura County on fraud and identity theft. Since he was imprisoned, Avila has been convicted of 20 felony offenses, all committed while in prison, including charges of attempted premeditated murder and multiple counts of assault on a peace officer with a deadly weapon.
My case is subject to the new special directive under Gascon. 90% of it is enhancements. And I am trying to get back into courts. Okay, and the thing is that I don't want to do this. I'll plead guilty to it as long as you drop all the strike priors and enhancements and everything in my other case.
Manhattan's new district attorney is making some big changes to what crimes will be prosecuted.
Manhattan's new district attorney, Alvin Bragg, has a plan to reform criminal justice in New York City. In his eyes, that starts with the system producing fewer criminals. In his first staff memo, Bragg instructs his office to reserve prison sentences for only the worst of violent offenses, like homicide, domestic felonies, and sex crimes. The DA will no longer seek life without parole and will reduce charges for victimless or petty crimes like low-level drug dealing and prostitution. Armed robbers and convicted criminals caught with weapons that aren't guns may also face more lenient charges. He says these issues are personal for him.
Will anyone besides criminals benefit under this DA?
This policy certainly is going to empower those who are doing the wrong thing in our city. And at a time when we just are trying to recover this city post Bill de Blasio, to see that the new district attorney in Manhattan is someone who's not going to help us restore this city, bring people back to work, and ensure that we attract more tourism, that we keep businesses here. He's going to be doing the exact opposite. This DA wants to actually charge people who commit armed robbery with just petty larceny. That's taking a sentence of a maximum of 25 years and bringing it down to just 364 days.
Not everyone is on board with this sort of reform. Critics doubt the success of similar policies in other major cities and believe they'll actually lead to more violence. The city's largest police union tweeted, "Police officers don't want to be sent out to enforce laws that the district attorneys won't prosecute."
They're really focused on coddling criminals in a lot of ways rather than upholding the rule of law and focusing on victims' rights.
What New York City is going to see now is our city, unfortunately, move toward the anarchy of Portland, the murders of Chicago, the smash and grabs of San Francisco, and I'm deeply concerned about this. And what really, gets me is that when a poll was taken among Democrats in this city, they said public safety was their top priority. They wanted government to focus more on keeping the streets of New York City safe. And then you see 84% of the residents of Manhattan vote for this district attorney who campaigned on these policies. He said he was going to do this, and they still voted for him. If we're going to continue to elect people like this in our city, Batman is not even going to be able to save Gotham anymore.
All in all, Soros has spent $11.2 million on DA races. So why spend so much money to elect local prosecutors?
There's almost no reform you want that prosecutors couldn't implement today using their own discretion. If you want bail reform, then prosecutors can simply stop asking for bail. If you want to see shorter sentences, then during plea bargaining, prosecutors should just offer lesser sentences. They have so much discretion. There's nothing they couldn't really accomplish if they didn't want to.
It's like the radical left is running a medical experiment and we're the lab rats. And if there's collateral damage, well, the overarching mission justifies it. They've said so. It's like making an omelet. If you want to remake society, you're going to have to crack a few skulls. And like scientists who conduct medical experiments, they're well protected, but the rats aren't. So you see the pattern. Eliminate bail requirements, stop prosecuting crimes, and use the pandemic to release even more violent thugs because, God forbid, a rapist has to suffer mild flu symptoms at Rikers. All of these dots end up creating a line pointing you to widespread brutality against minorities, the elderly, and now even the rich. But you can't blame Soros alone. It's not like he created these people. He may not be a dot, but he sure knows how to connect them. But it's like blaming the Jets owner for the team's horrible record the last 10 years. He didn't create these bad players. He just pays them.